Welcome to the Inner Space Project podcast, where we explore the full spectrum of emotions, from joy and love to sadness and fear, taking you on an inner space journey that challenges societal norms, encourages open dialogue, and raises awareness about all the parts of us, including the ones that may seem dark and mysterious. I'm your host, Dr. Patti Ashley, psychotherapist, author, TEDx speaker, and clinical trainer. Thank you for joining me as we navigate the labyrinth of emotions, dismantle stigma, and pave the way for a more compassionate and connected world. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Inner Space Project podcast. I'm Dr. Patti Ashley, your host, and today's episode is the last episode of season 2, and it is a liminal space episode. Those of you who have been following my podcast know that I've divided it up into beginnings, middles, endings, and liminal space, so I can cover all the aspects of our lives from birth through death to everything in between. And so because this is our last episode for the season, and it is the in-between time from season 2 to hopefully season 3, I just wanted to talk a little bit about in-between times, liminal space times when we don't really know what's next. Do any of you have those times when you don't know what's next? I think a lot of us are living in that right now. We're in a time where we really don't know what's next. And how do we live in that space? How do we sit with maybe discomfort or whatever comes up and trust that things are unfolding and will continue to unfold as they should, even in challenge and struggle and uncertainty and pain and sorrow. Those in-between spaces are where we really can breathe. It's kind of like you think about the caterpillar in the chrysalis before it becomes a butterfly. That's liminal space. And, they say when the caterpillar is in the cocoon, it turns into goo. It turns into this gooey substance before it becomes a butterfly. And it can't be a butterfly too soon. If you open it up, it's going to die. So it has to have the time it takes to be fully transformed into this new, beautiful butterfly. And sometimes it's really hard for us to sit in the goo. I know it is for me. It's been kind of been a life lesson for me. It's been sitting in a lot of goo. I've had a lot of change in my life and transitions, and yet, when we really allow ourselves to just go in and be in that space, sometimes a lot of the answers come. The Bible quote that a lot of people know is "Be still and know that I'm God." I'm not really religious, so I'm not really talking religion here. I'm just saying that whole idea of be still and know, be still and know. That's the liminal space. And so with this podcast being in between seasons, and the liminal space that I'm in with the podcast is the fact that I created the Inner Space Project because I feel like many of us don't really understand what's going on inside of us, inside of our hearts and our souls and our essence, and we don't really know about our emotional selves because we never learned it. We were told, stop crying before I give you something to cry about. You should be ashamed of yourself. What are you angry about? Or even get over your grief, So my work through the years has really been about all aspects of life in relationship to what is going on inside and what is the work that we need to do when we are in those places of uncertainty. So when you look at parenting, for instance, and childbirth, awaiting that liminal space of childbirth, and the in-between times of not knowing, our children transitioning, and all kinds of things related to that liminal space in between, like college students looking for jobs because they're graduating and they don't know what's going to happen next. And there's all this unknown and uncertainty. And then in the grief and the endings, we talk about grief and death and dying. There's liminal space there. There's you know, somebody gets cancer and we don't know what's going to happen. There's all these spaces in between. Um, and I just recently wrote a song, and the verse is it's about being silent. It's about um, going inward and not necessarily needing to figure things out. And what I've found is that sometimes when I'm talking about my liminal space experience to people I know, they want to fix it. They want me to move through it. They want me to be done with it. They want me to get to the other side of it. And they have a really hard time listening. So I wrote this song called A Sacred Vow of Silence. Because I decided to be still, like I'm saying, be still and know. I decided not to talk about these things as much to other people. I love to talk about these things because this is what I do, right? This is my work. And at the same time, a lot of times we have to go inward into our own um, sense of what we're experiencing because no one else knows that experience the way we do, right? So the verse, I'll even try and sing it a little bit for you. I took a sacred vow of silence. I decided to be still. And in that sacred vow of silence, all that ever will be will. And of course, there's much more to the song. And that was really brave of me to sing on my podcast, but I just did it because I am in liminal space right now. I love singing and songwriting, and it really kind of a new thing to me, but it's very healing when we can connect to music. So anyway, and connect to the silence and be in the liminal space. So I'm encouraging you to think a little bit about that. And back to my podcast. I started it because these things are so important to me. Jeff Bezos went to outer space, raised $5.5 billion. And I thought, good Lord, that's a lot of money to go to outer space. Not that I'm opposed to going to outer space. I think it's wonderful that we can explore all of the galaxy, whatever. But what's inside our own hearts and what's inside our own sacred space isn't looked at much or well. And that's what I want to do. That's why I called it the Inner Space Project. So we're going to go to inner space. And part of what I've learned about myself in my inner space is that I'm not really good at asking for money. I've never been one of those really hardcore, work hard to buy things and make something of your life. I've been more of like, I'm curious about human beings and relationship and life. And I want to know more about it, and I want to help people with it. And that's my work. So my work, I'm not really good at asking for money, raising money. I hate when I have to raise my fees because I wish I could do this for free. And the reason I'm saying all this is I am doing this podcast for free, and it is a lot of work. And I'm grateful to have my son's friend who's helping me pro bono edit this. And I'm not sure if season 3 can happen if I don't get better at the fundraising part and the asking for money. So I'm in this liminal space place of what are we going to do to keep this podcast going? So any of you out there that are listening, if you have any suggestions on ways for me to get sponsors and or raise money to contribute to the work that I'm putting into this, I also want to do a Substack and some more YouTube lives on the topics. What I'm thinking about doing is keeping the theme of beginnings, middles, endings, and liminal space. And so having 4 quarters each year where I focus on those things. So I do classes and YouTube lives and, some Substack posts and things and the podcast. But again, I won't get paid for any of that unless I find some way to make that work. And that's not my strength. So shout out to anybody who knows how to do that, that can help me, because I'd love to keep this going, because especially right now in the world, it's so important. So speaking of liminal space, we just finished up a great season. Started off with Robin Kuklowski, who is a clinical psychologist who specializes in attachment trauma, post-traumatic parenting. And so she was my first beginnings in September, and that was a great conversation. And then the middles was Catherine Holt. Edit this out, Mac. And so Catherine Holt wrote a book on body image and healing body image. Great conversation in October. In November, I spoke in the Endings podcast about having lost my partner 9 years ago, Lawrence Freedom, and my book, Letters to Freedom. And then my liminal space was with Kelly Sullivan Walden, who's a dear friend of mine, who is a expert with dreams, and she's also a hypnotist, and she's written a ton of books. She's an author, and her book, Dreamifesting, is fairly new, and it's all about asking your dreams to give you some insights into what you want to do. And that's liminal space. So our dream world is liminal space. And you edit that too, Matt. Back. My throat this morning. Okay. And then, thank God for you, Mac. And then my other dear friend, Amber Chamberlain, started off the Next Beginnings in January, and she spoke about maternal mental health, which is her work that she's doing on the East Coast and the Northern Virginia area. And then in February, I had Christian Austin, who, oh man, what an incredible story, overcame a tremendous amount of childhood trauma and abuse after spending many years in prison and in and out of jail and heroin and just a lot. And then finally got sober and got offered a position, or got offered a scholarship to get his degree in music. And he started teaching music in prisons, and now he's written an incredible book called Resilience, and I highly recommend it. And he is in England and working and sober, and it just has a lot to share in his book. And then today is me, my liminal space. So don't know what's up. Oh, how could I completely forget? I did completely forget the endings. Christian Austin was my middles. And then my endings was Mickey Burns, who's the CEO of Judy's House, which is an incredible program in Denver for children who've lost parents. And those of you who know me know that that's my story. Losing my father when I was 11 is why I'm here today doing this, and why I think this is so important, and why I really don't care about the corporate ladder and all those things. Because when you lose a parent when you're a child, it just shakes up your whole world. And it made me ask the bigger questions. Why are we here? What's the point? Where is heaven? Everybody's telling me I should be happy. My dad's in heaven. Where is that? And why can't I go there? So there's a lot of big questions to ask when you're 11. And most of my peers weren't, asking those questions. So that's how I grew into where I am today, many, many, many years later. And so this conversation with Mickey was amazing. And the work that they do at Judy's House too is amazing. So what's up for the next season is, I don't know yet. But there's a lot of people out there that I'd love to interview, and I hope to interview. And again, keep the beginnings, middles, endings, and liminal space outline. and yeah, and just help you understand the places inside you, even the places that feel dark and mysterious. So thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, share, and any suggestions on sponsorships and, funding this important work would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this inner space journey, and we'll come back again for the upcoming episodes. For more information about the Inner Space Project and all the other offerings I have for you, please visit my website, www.pattiashley.com, PATTIASHLEY. Thanks again, and I'll see you real soon.